Jeremiah J. Wells adjusted his tie in the rearview mirror of his well-worn Toyota Corolla, parked outside the impressive headquarters of Raptor Technologies. He prepared himself for a job interview that could change his life. At 34 years old, Jay was a single father of 7-year-old Zoey, who was staying with their neighbor, Mrs. Patel, while he tried to secure a steady income. 2 weeks from now, Jay would be evicted unless he found work, and this opportunity was his last chance. The job he had applied for was as a personal driver to the company's young CEO, Victoria Steele. It was the kind of job no one else seemed to want. High expectations, long hours, and an employer with a reputation for being near impossible to please. But with a salary of $80,000 per year, it was worth the gamble. Jay's background was in accounting, but after being laid off 6 months ago, he had burned through his savings. At the end of his rope, he needed this job. Zoey deserved a stable life, and Jay would do whatever it took to make that happen. Stepping into the building, Jay took the elevator to the 45th floor. He was greeted by a cold receptionist who directed him to a waiting area. Just as the clock struck 2 p.m., the office doors opened. And there she was, Victoria Steele. She was every bit as imposing as the rumors had suggested. At 29, Victoria had inherited her father's tech empire and turned it into a billion-dollar company in just 3 years. She was platinum blonde with a sharp bob, dressed in a designer suit that probably cost more than Jay's entire wardrobe. Her ice blue eyes immediately scanned him, not offering a handshake. "Mr. Wells, you're punctual. That's encouraging." "My last 5 drivers couldn't manage that," she said coldly. "Yes, ma'am," Jay replied, trying to keep his nerves under control. "I understand this is a challenging position." "Challenging?" She raised an eyebrow. "I work 18-hour days. My life revolves around meetings, traveling, and maintaining an image. The last driver quit halfway through his first day because I asked him to take an alternate route. Are you going to leave when things get difficult?" Jay thought of Zoey, the eviction notice, and his dwindling bank account. "No, ma'am. I won't abandon my responsibilities." Victoria stared at him for a moment before continuing. "Your resume shows a background in accounting. Why this career change?" "My company downsized," Jay replied. "I've been looking for steady work for 6 months." "You think driving a car requires no skill?" she asked, catching him off guard. "No, ma'am. I think managing someone's safety, their schedule, and representing their company takes significant responsibility." She studied him for a moment, the tension hanging in the air. "Most people would see this as a temporary job. You seem to see it differently." "I need this job, Miss Steele," Jay said firmly. "And I'll do it better than anyone else you've had." "Fine," Victoria said, standing up. "You start Monday at 6 a.m. Don't disappoint me." Jay's first week was nothing short of grueling. Victoria's schedule was relentless. Morning meetings, business lunches, client dinners. Jay was there for all of it, making sure her every need was met. He had to adjust everything to her liking, from the temperature in the car to the route choices, which were scrutinized relentlessly. Despite the harsh treatment, Jay noticed things others missed. Victoria, for all her toughness, never ate lunch and survived solely on coffee. Her phone rang with international calls at all hours, and Jay could see the exhaustion that weighed her down. One Friday evening, after a particularly long day, Victoria's phone rang, and Jay overheard her conversation. "No, I'll handle it myself," Victoria said, hanging up and rubbing her temples. Jay glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "Tough day, Miss Steele." "Every day is tough," she said with a sigh. "That's just the nature of business." Jay hesitated before asking, "When's the last time you took a real break?" Victoria let out a bitter laugh. "I can't afford luxuries like breaks. While I'm resting, my competitors are working. When I sleep, the world is moving." Jay glanced at her, his voice gentle. "But burnout doesn't help anyone. Even machines need maintenance." She looked at him, surprised by the comment. But instead of dismissing him, she fell quiet. That weekend, Jay used his first paycheck to pay rent and buy Zoey new school supplies. When they sat down for dinner, Zoey asked, "Why do you work so late, Daddy?" Jay smiled softly. "Because I'm helping someone who works very hard, and she's helping us have a better life." "Is she nice?" Zoey asked, clearly curious about the woman who had taken up so much of her dad's time. "She's complicated," Jay said thoughtfully, "but I think she's trying to be good at something very difficult." The following Monday, Jay faced a personal emergency. Mrs. Patel, who had been watching Zoey, had fallen and broken her hip. She could no longer help, and Jay had no one else to watch his daughter. "I'm sorry, Miss Steele," Jay said, panic rising in his voice. "I have an emergency. Can I bring my daughter to the office today?" Victoria didn't immediately react, but after a tense moment, she replied, "Where is she?" "In the car. I know this is unprofessional, Bring her up, Victoria said, her tone softer than Jay had ever heard. Zoey entered the office, her energy filling the space. She immediately noticed Victoria's large desk and asked, "Wow, your office is really big." Victoria blinked in surprise. "You must be Zoey," she said gently. "Your dad says you're smart." Zoey grinned. "He says you're his boss. Are you nice to him?" Victoria smiled faintly. "I try to be fair to your dad." That day something shifted. Victoria, who had always been all business, began to show an unexpected patience with Zoey. During meetings, Zoey quietly coloured and worked on her tablet, occasionally asking Jay questions. Victoria seemed to notice things she hadn't before. "Your daughter is remarkable," she told Jay one afternoon as they drove to another appointment. "She's well behaved and she sees things others don't." As the weeks passed, Jay began to notice a change in Victoria. She started showing more empathy, even offering to arrange tutoring sessions for Zoey. It wasn't just business anymore, it was personal. One late night, after a particularly difficult business dinner, Victoria broke down in the car, her composure cracking. "I just lost the biggest deal of my career," she said softly. 3 years of work gone because I couldn't compromise on terms that would have hurt my workers. Jay glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "That sounds like integrity, not failure." Victoria's eyes widened, and for the first time she saw Jay in a new light. Months passed, and the bond between Jay and Victoria deepened. Victoria, the ruthless CEO, was no longer just the ice queen. She was a woman struggling with the weight of expectations and the loneliness of leadership. Jay had become her anchor, the one person who saw her for who she truly was. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, Victoria took Jay's hand. "I need you to know this job, having you and Zoey in my life, it's changed something in me." Jay smiled softly. "It's changed me too." They'd started as employer and employee, but over time, they had become something much more. They had found in each other a love that defied the world's expectations. A year later, as Jay and Victoria watched Zoey practice her science project in the backyard of their suburban home, the world had changed. Victoria had given up her billionaire empire for the most valuable thing she'd ever had, a family built on love, respect, and genuine connection. "Any regrets?" Jay asked, pulling her closer. Victoria laughed softly. "Not a single one." And in that moment, Jay knew that the greatest decision he had ever made was taking a job no one else wanted. It had led him to the love of his life, and together, they had built something far more valuable than wealth: a family.